It's time for another Dirt Daily. And today, my Dirty 80 Series Land Cruiser. Now, whenever I do a video on the Dirty 80 Series Land Cruiser, it's presented by Onyx Off-Road because I do a monthly Onyx Off-Road video. Onyx Off-Road is an app. You put it on your phone. It has a bunch of maps. It tells you where there's trails. If you're out on the trail and you get lost, you can use the map to get home. It also has a really cool feature where it can tell you who owns property. So say you're driving a back road and you see a cool rock obstacle on a piece of property. You can get on the Onyx app, find out the owner, send them a letter and be like, hey, can I come go rock crawling on your property? So not only do you sign up for Onyx Off-Road and get to find places to go four-wheeling, you can sign up and get discounts to build your off-road vehicle so that you can go four-wheeling. But today, even though it's an Onyx video and even though right behind me is the Land Cruiser, we're not going to work on this Toyota. We're going to work on this Toyota. This is my 2003 Toyota 4Runner I call Pond Scum. This was a Toyota that we built on Dirt Every Day, and I painted it myself this beautiful green color, which might be considered booger green, but I called it Pond Scum green. And it's the one that everybody knows because the paint didn't set when I first painted it, so it was always sticky. But the paint has since set, and I've been driving this a bunch, and it needs some things to get done to it so that I can take it more wheeling. But today we're gonna do a really simple project involves the front bumper and some off-road lights, because this thing, well, you'll see. Let's get to work. So one cool thing about Onyx Off-Road is if you sign up for the Elite program, you can get discounts with a bunch of their collaborating partner businesses. So for example, when we built the Pond Scum 4Runner, we put a Marlin Crawler suspension on it, and Marlin Crawler offers a discount if you're an Elite member of Onyx Off-Road. Also Fox Shocks, Warren Winch, like we put on the front bumper. And so if you sign up for the Elite program, it'll not only help you find the trails, but it'll help you get discounts on parts so you can build your rig to go find those trails. Now, this truck, we finished it. We took it four-wheeling, we ran 4-dice. Then we changed some more things on it. We took it snow-wheeling. And since then, I've done a few little things, but I've really built up a long list of things that I want to do to it. Things like fix the inner fenders because the inner metal work needs some more work done inside there. Maybe add some flares depending on which tires I run. The tires stick out pretty far, so I was trying to develop some sort of flares that could cover tires but not smash into trees and rocks. Probably put some sort of sound deadener, lizard skin or something like that on the floor to kind of deal with heat and sound because there's no carpet in it or anything right now. I have an air compressor I want to put in it. I have an air tank. I want to put a roll cage in it. And I want to fix turn signals, which seems like a pretty minor thing, but that's the project we're going to do today. This 4Runner originally had kind of like a plastic bumper, and down in the bumper is where the turn signals and the fog lights lived. Since then, they've just been hanging out right here. There's like a fog light bulb and a turn signal bulb that are just kind of floating. And not only is this probably not really legal, it just looks bad. And so I've been trying to work up a plan on how to mount some lights or turn signals on it. And I think I have a plan that we're gonna get into today. So this is considered a 4th gen 4Runner. And in early 4th gens, the turn signal and the fog lights were on the bumper, like I was saying. Later on, they moved them into the headlights. But I have kind of vaguely been looking around for some later model headlights that had the turn signals in. And then I was kind of going through some stuff that I had, and I was like, why don't I just use what I have? Instead of trying to like redesign or engineer or rewire the whole thing, why don't I just figure out a way to mount a turn signal and a fog light right here? So I was digging through some leftover parts and I found these. It looks like a turn signal off a tractor, which it probably could be, but it's also the turn signal left over from the Baja bugs. And this is designed where the body of the light is the ground, and then you can have a running light and a turn signal wired right into these two wires. And then I also found these little guys. This cute little off-road light is from Pia, and it's a little, I think it's a HID light, and I'm gonna just figure out a way to mount both this and this right into this corner so that it has a turn signal and a little fog light. And then I'll cut these fittings off, wire it right in, and then I don't have to wire in a switch or a whole bunch of other stuff. I can just use all the stock wiring that's already there and have it feed these two. So if you look inside the bumper, there's actually a metal plate right here with a hole in it, and I'm pretty sure that my plan is to just drill a hole behind this hole in the side of the plate so that this light will basically mount right about there. And it'll probably actually be back a little bit more, like right underneath this tube. And then above that, there is like another piece of metal. You just barely see it, and it has a slot cut in it. And that's pretty much designed to put some sort of light. You could suspend the light from it, move it across. In fact, this thing could also mount right up in there, but I think I'm going to put that little fog light in this outside edge of that slot, and then that fog light will sit kind of right about here, and the turn signal will fit right inside there. So we're going to start with the turn signal because that's going to be the first one that's going to be tucked inside there. I'm trying to figure out a way to mount them so that you can see them when you're on the street, but they're also as well protected as possible with these tubes so that when you're off-roading, if you brush against a tree or rock or something, it doesn't shatter the lights. Let's talk a little bit about some wiring. You know, when we did Dirt Every Day, whenever we had to wire something, the camera crew hated it because they were like, this is so boring. And wiring is not exciting work. It's kind of like you just have to take your time and methodically kind of chip away at it. And a lot of people are scared of wiring. But on a car, it's really not too bad. There's the positive side and there's the negative side. There's the power and the ground. And you just need to understand how that flows, and it is usually pretty good. And you need a fuse. Luckily, what I'm doing here, I am banking on using the fuses, the factory fuses, because I'm using the factory wires, and then I'm just putting a different light at the end of the wires. Will that work, or will this light require more power than that? I don't know. I'm sure somebody could figure it out with amperage and voltage and wattage, but for me, I'm just going to wire it in, and if it blows the fuse, then I'll know that it's not working. If it blows the fuse, well, let's back up. This light has two wires, and you would think, oh, well, red is positive and black is ground. That's not right. This is actually grounded through the metal section here. This red wire is your turn signal. This black wire is your marker light, your running light. And on this 4Runner, there's a running light way up here. So I'm gonna try and run this black wire up there to that running light. And then this red wire will go to this. Now this thing only has two wires going into it. If this had three wires going into it, I would be like, oh, it's got a running light, a turn signal, and a ground. But it doesn't. It has a white wire and a red wire. And I can tell you, because I've already messed with the other side, that the red wire is the positive and the white wire is the ground. So, knowing that, I can come in here and just cut that off. This in the trash. Now, how did I figure out which one was the ground and which one was positive? This guy, the power probe. I love this thing. When I touch it to one side, it makes a one noise. And when I touch it to the other side, well, right now it's not making any noise, but when I touch it to that other side, it will come up on here as reading 12 volts when the turn signal or the hazard light is on. So I know that that red one is the positive, and I know that this red one is the positive. So those two need to be connected. This one, the white one, the ground, needs to be connected to this. And so how are we gonna do that? Well, you can go to your local auto parts store and get a big old eyelet. Now these wires are pretty small gauge wire. And this, I want to go over that. However, I wasn't able to find this in a 1/2 inch. I could only find it in a 3/8. So how do I make that ground out to that? Well, you can do a couple things. If you're really rockabilly in it, you can just like strip those wires off and wrap them around the threads and hope that that makes a connection. Don't do that. That's kind of junky. What you can do is you come in here with your cutters. Let's find the right ones. Cut it with this guy. So you come in here and you cut it right in the middle there. And then you just open that up a little. And then you can open it up enough that it will go over the threads of this, and when you have that white wire connected to that, it will ground it out. I'm not saying that this won't ground through the bumper, through the chassis, and all the way up to the battery, but I know that this white wire is a ground, and I don't know if well, I'm pretty sure that when you flip the switch, it sends power to this one because this one's already grounded. But just to double make sure that it's a good ground, because if there's one thing that goes wrong with electrical stuff, it's a bad ground. I'm going to splice this to that, the white wire to this now opened ring terminal, slide that over the threads, bolt it to the side of the bumper, and then I'm sure I have a good ground. Next, I need to get from this red wire to that red wire, connect all of those, and then when you hit the hazard lights or the left-hand turn signal, this should start flashing. And then this black one, we will route that all the way up to the marker light, find the wire in there that has positive power, and we will splice it into that. Now, well, I'll show you a splice in a little bit. I hate splices. They're kind of junky, but I haven't really found a better solution. So let's get to that when we get to that. So right here I have a red and a white wire, and I need to get them to that light, but I need a little bit more length. So I just grabbed some more red and white wire, about the same gauge, and I measured out about that much because it needs to go up and around, and it needs to have a little bit of slack. You don't want the wires to be tight, so you want to give it a little bit of slack. Now, how do you make this attached to this? Well, there's a lot of different rules, regulations, theories, etc., for connecting two wires. I'm going to show you what I do, and I don't know, like, I'm sure that there's a better way to do this, but this will work, and I'm sure in the comments there'll be a lot of experts, wiring experts, and I appreciate that. I want to hear everybody's input because I'm just going to show you the way I've been doing it for years, and maybe there's a better way. I grabbed this thing. It's just a cheapo wire stripper, and I strip off a little bit on the end of the wire. Because these are small gauge wires, you're going to use the red connector. That thing slides on there. Then I grab this tool, and that section right in there is where I'm going to crimp this, and that will crimp the connector inside there onto the wire. Now, when you crimp this, sometimes it breaks through that outer insulation. But this outer insulation is like a heat shrink type stuff. So like once I have it crimped to this, you can hit it with a heat gun and that will shrink around the wire and heat shrink around it. I then follow that up with more heat shrink. I'm using blue because it's what I have. I want enough that it will cover that connector and go up the wire a little bit on either side. So you're going to slide this on, get it out of the way, crimp this together on both ends after they've both been stripped, crimp it, heat it so this shrinks, then slide this guy over it, and then heat it again so it shrinks. Then that little spot in there that you crimped, which might have broken through the heat shrink, has more heat shrink over top of it. Redundant? Yes. Over too much? Probably. Is there a better, simpler, quicker way? I don't know. This is the way I do it. I think it's worked for me well for a long time. I would love to spend a month at Billy Bob's trophy truck wiring shop and learn all the tricks in the trade of how the really high-end Wazoo guys do it. But you want to hook up some turn signals on your 4Runner? This will work. So, and I like to kind of prep stuff. I like to get one wire together, crimped, and then I can move on to attaching it to these wires. Does the wire color matter? No, you could use red attached to white because inside the wire it's all the same. But if you can get, like I like to get the wire, if the factory wire is red and I need to extend it a foot, I try to find more red wire the same size. Otherwise, then you're like, have a whole rainbow spaghetti situation going on. So there we go. We have this, both of these connected. Grab your handy dandy heat gun. It's probably Harbor Freight because cheap, easy. Crank it up to high and then come in here and heat these guys up. And they will shrink around the wire. And I can see exactly where I crimped. And the little crimp spot has broken through the heat shrink. So that's when I grab my blue heat shrink and I slide that on there. And I think it's also tricky to find like the right size heat shrink. Sometimes the stores don't have all of the best selections. And then you try to like center this little piece of heat shrink over the connector. Get that to all seal up good around the wire. And then when you turn on your turn signal, this is the power line, that connection won't rub against the bumper or the frame and ground out and cause a short. The ground side probably doesn't really technically need the double heat shrink because if it rubs through, it's just grounding again. But I think I'm just gonna do it because I have it. I was editing a video the other day and I noticed that a lot of times when I'm working on stuff, I make really funny faces. I'm not paying attention to what my face is doing. I'm just trying to get things to go together. So there you go. Now you have two butt connections that are heat shrinked inside and then heat shrinked outside. And now this is extended enough that it can go to the light. Oh, at the other end of the white one, which is the ground, we are going to put that little guy, that ring terminal that I cut open to clear. And that one really doesn't need to be that long. I'm going to say it's going to be about right here. And then we'll come in here and we'll strip this guy. You don't need to strip very much of it. Like, I don't know if you can see there, but that little bit right there is all that's going to crimp onto the exposed wire. So if you strip off an inch, it's not going to do you any good. You really just need just enough that it gets all the way into and through that crimp spot. And then here's another one that's kind of weird. When I'm doing a ring terminal, most of your crimpers have like a male end and a female end. So as it goes together, the male end goes in the female end. And when I'm doing a ring terminal like this, I don't know if that's going to focus, I put the male end on the bottom and have it press up into the bottom of the ring terminal, and then the top female side crimps down over the part that kind of sticks up off of the ring terminal. Is that technically the right way? I don't know. That's the way I do it. I think that's the thing with wiring, is you're going to find, because there's going to be people who are like, oh, well, NASA says you're supposed to do it this way. Or, oh, if you're building a nuclear submarine, you should do it that way. Or, oh, when I was at Apple making iPhones, we did it this way. I'm trying to put turn signals on the 4Runner. Put all your comments in the comments below, because I want to hear about all your tricks and trades of electrical connection science. Two more things. We have to extend this black wire, because it has to come from back there and then up to this corner. So I'm going to make it extra long, maybe about 3 feet, so then I can cut it down when I get close to that marker light. Splice, and then I'm going to run these wires in through and connect them, and then I'll slide the whole thing inside there, inside the, I'm gonna run these wires through the bumper and then connect them, and then I can slide this through that hole right there in the bumper. In case you're wondering how to find out about which wire is turn signal and which one is marker light, there's two things you can do. You can use your power probe and you can send power to each side, and whichever one is brighter is gonna be your turn signal, whichever one is dimmer will be your marker light. Or you can look at the back of the packaging that this came with, and it literally says black wire is parking light. Now I have three wires running to this turn signal that are, they're insulated, but they don't have any like loom over them. So there's two types of loom that I kind of recommend. There's your basic every auto parts store split loom, which is kind of this corrugated plastic, and it has a split right down the middle of it there, and you can stuff wires in it. This is kind of the budget stuff. Everybody has it. Does it work? Yeah, it works. It's fine. It's not great. It's not super clean. You can put some tape around it if you want to protect it more, or just put a little bit of tape at the end so it doesn't like peel out through that split. This stuff's fine. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I've used it lots of times. This is the other option. This is power braid. You can see it's kind of more of a fabric style, and it rolls around a wire. And this I got from Painless, and they even sell like a little tool to install it. Comes in different sizes. There's one that's like super tiny for like basically one wire. This one is probably good for 2 or 3 wires, depending on the wire gauge, and then they have a larger one. They have at least 3 sizes. They may have more now. And this stuff is, I prefer this. It's a little bit harder to work with, a little bit harder to get the wire in there, but once it's in there, it seems to like grab around it better than the good old-fashioned split loom. But split loom's fine. It's better than nothing because then it's protecting the wires from chafing, or if you're running wires like around a sharp edge, like the inside of the bumper, there's kind of like a sharp piece of plate there with some corners on it, and it's better to have it in even this stuff than nothing at all. But since I have some of this power braid, I'm going to use it. The next step, I have the marker light wire. That was the black wire that was running to the turn signal, and I need to get up to the headlight and tap into the wire that runs to the marker light in the headlight fixture. And to do that, I'm going to use something that I'm not really fond of, but it works. So say this is your wire, and you have, we'll just use the other end of it, this wire, and you want it to basically splice in right there like that. This is it. This is what every auto parts store will sell you. And if you look at it, there's 2 kind of tubes that are next to each other, and then there's that piece of metal. And when you have a wire running through that tube and you squeeze that piece of metal down in, it basically cuts into the wire and then forms a circuit with the other wire. So let's say this is the wire you want to splice into. That slides into one side of the splice, and then the other wire that you want to splice into it slides into the other side of the splice. So it basically looks like that, 2 in, 1 out. And then you grab your pliers, just your basic flat pliers, and you come in and you squeeze this so that metal thing cuts into both of them. Like that. You can see how it's flush in there. And then this little piece is the little door, and you close that over, and that locks it all together. Now you have this splice coming in to the middle of that. I don't like these. They work. They're kind of junky. The proper way is probably to cut both of these and then butt this together with this one. The problem is half the time the wire that you need to splice into is not easily accessible. It's like up against the frame or behind the headlight or whatever. And so you use these things. I wish there was a cleaner system than this, one that was sealed better, one that actually you could like heat shrink over it. Maybe you could slide a piece of heat shrink over all of this, but then you have this heat shrink that has to be big enough to clear this, but then small enough that it gets tight. Basically, somebody in the comments, tell me the better option of this, because I want to know what it is. This is what you can find everywhere. It works. It's kind of meh. But somebody has to have a better solution than that. Or maybe it's just cut everything, weave it all together, solder it all, and slide heat shrink over the whole thing. But that's what you have to do to get this to tap into that, unless somebody has a better option. So let's see if it works. All right, we're testing marker lights and turn signal. Turning this one click on the headlights. Ha ha! Look at that. Marker light, marker light. Now, let's lean in and see if the hazards will start blinking. Yes. That's awesome. I have a turn signal. One more step. Now, where did it go? This guy. These are the Pia little off-road lights that I'm going to use as fog lights, and I'm going to tap in where the fog light used to be. So this little off-road light is an HID, which means it kind of has to warm up and then it starts to glow really bright. It comes with, or it came with, a full wiring harness, which has a power cord that runs to the battery, and then it goes through a fuse, and then it goes to a relay, and then from that relay there's a wire that goes inside to your dash to a button, and then there were two big wires that ran out to these plugs, and then they went and had little connectors that looked like this that then plugs right into the connectors on the light. And that allows you to change out, remove the light easily. So what I did was I cut that little connector off. Kind of redundant because I'm going to have a butt connector here and then a disconnectable connector there, but I'm doing it because I have it. Now, here's the other thing. This wire loom has a fuse and then a relay. And but I'm planning on using just this wire and having it feed the light and not use a relay. You could wire this in as a signal and have it be the signal that would activate the relay and activate the power through the fuse to the relay to the lights. I looked in the fuse box and there is a relay for the fog lights. It says it right in the fuse box. So I'm not going to use any of this garbage. I'm crossing my fingers that that relay is enough to feed this little HID light. And the reason I think it will be is because the gauge wire that they're using on this is tiny, tiny. And the gauge wire on this is the same size. So I'm just going to cut that off, connect this, mount the whole thing up in there, and then turn on the fog lights and see if these light up. And if it doesn't, what's going to happen? It's going to probably blow the fuse in the engine or in the fuse box, and then I will know that I need to put a relay in line. So this old light in the trash. I'm so excited for this this video because I know I have friends that are engineers, smart guys. They love to tell me all the stuff I did was wrong. And I'm like, there's gonna be so many people that are gonna be like, but what about the amperage draw? And what about the this and that? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying it. We'll see if this works. Oh, the other thing, got a white wire and a green wire. And so far, every white wire has been ground. So I'm pretty sure this one's gonna be ground as well. Power probe, stab it in the end of the white wire. Try not to stab it into the end of your finger. Oh. Grounded. Sweet. So, but yeah, it's going to be exciting because I'm going to get lots of input from people that know all about electricity and how to make stuff work. And at the end of the day, they're probably smarter than me. But if I can get my fog lights to work and my turn signals to work and the truck doesn't catch on fire, I think I'll call that a win. Here's another thing that doesn't really hurt. Before you heat shrink everything and wrap it in wire loom and route it perfectly, it doesn't hurt to plug the wires together and then turn on the fog light and make sure you have your wires right, because this one's got a little bit crazy because on the truck, the ground is white. On the light, the ground is black. On the light, the power is red, and on the truck, it's green, but then the connector was white. So things got a little green, white, red, white, black, black. Let's turn the thing on, and then if it lights up, then we can mount it and clean it up and make it perfect. Look at that. That's a good sign. So these are an HID, and they have an internal ballast. It used to be an HID, you would have to have an external ballast you'd mount somewhere. It's all internal. I think the paperwork says it uses like 25 watts per light. And like I said, I'm using the factory relay to power all of this. The other question is this going to be too bright for a fog light? Is it going to be like blinding? A couple things you can do. It's adjustable, so you can adjust it down so it's not kind of blasting right in the oncoming traffic's eyes. You can also, I think you can get like an amber lens that would pop over this, because a lot of times having like an amber fog light seems to help better in the in like the rain and fog and stuff. It's all kind of up to driver preference. I am going to mount this, hook these up, put some more wire loom on, zip tie it up, and then we can see how this truck looks with its all brand new lights. Nowadays, people would probably just put LEDs in here. I 100% am doing this just with stuff that I have left over. And like I honestly don't even know if Pia still makes these lights or still offers them for sale. I assume they do. Let's see how we did with our light install. Step 1, driving lights, parking lights. That looks pretty good. Step 2, hazard lights. That looks pretty good. How do our fog lights look? Oh yeah, they're lighting up. Look at that. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, that's it for this Dirt Daily. It's a simple little project, but it's another thing off that long list of stuff that I want to do to Pond Scum. Don't forget to go to Onyx Off-Road and sign up. Use the 4xFred discount code when you sign up and you'll get a discount. Sign up for the Elite program and you can get discounts with a lot of other cool brands that are members of that whole Onyx Off-Road Elite program. I'm going to show off the lights and see what this thing looks like. That's it for this Dirt Daily. We'll see you guys next time. Oh yeah. We'll be able to drive in the dark now.